Hello Nanaimo, my name is Nicole Utulinde. I am a local musician. I am a student here, and as well I work in the community. A big thank you to the Nanaimo Pride Society for supporting Black Lives Matter, for amplifying Black voices, and for allowing me to take over their social medias today to discuss issues that face us as Black people and the community at large. So I have invited the president of the Nanaimo African Heritage Society to have a conversation about race and the Black experience in Nanaimo. And so without further ado, here's the video. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
My name is Nicole. This is Shalema. I'd like to start by introducing ourselves.
Well, I'm Shalema Gantt, and we live here in Nanaimo for, almost 30-some years, Lord have mercy. And I'm the president of the Nanaimo African Heritage Society, and we've had our society here now for 21 years, actually, this year, celebrating 21 years.
So I have lived in Nanaimo, I've lived in Canada for 13 years, but in Nanaimo kind of on and off most of the time I've been here. I am a local musician. I do work in the community as well, and I'm a student at VIU in the music department. And so, what does Black Lives Matter mean to you?
Black Lives Matters to me, first of all, we are human beings, that's number one. Number two, Black Lives Matter. It's really such a heavy statement. It's really one of those things that I find difficult to express because there's so many emotions around it. We're human beings. We are like any other persons on the earth, and that we should be treated like any other persons on the earth. Mm-hmm. Killing and murdering and taking our lives and all the hardship that our ancestors have gone through simply because of their skin being black or brown is unconscionable. It's one thing that is hard to express or explain, because why on earth does this happen? What was it? We can go back a long way, 400 and some years ago, when they went and kidnapped a bunch of us and brought us over from Africa and then brought us to North America to have free labor. Mm-hmm. That from that moment on, it was a degradation against Black people, as though they were something lower than animals. So it's Black Lives Matter. When people speak up and say lives matter, or what do you say to that? I don't see you being murdered in the streets because of your skin color. Mm-hmm. I don't see this constant discussion on about your skin color, that you should be treated or any other way other than how people are treated. So I'm sorry, Nicole, it's just such a hard thing to kind of express, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's definitely a strong statement. It's a tough subject to discuss because a lot of people feel like when we say Black Lives Matter, they take it as a threat. They feel like we're saying their lives don't matter, or that somehow we deserve more rights, or we need more privileges, or we need more this and that. But that's not the point. The point we're trying to make is we want the same rights that everybody has. We want to be able to go about our lives, our businesses, not bothering anybody, and not fear for our lives. We want to be able to go apply for jobs and not be denied just because of us, the color of our skin. We want to be able to just live normal lives without fear of being killed or being mistreated. And so we're basically looking for basic human rights, and that's what Black Lives Matter means. A lot of people might wonder why we are speaking out about this now, why we're having this conversation now. Why is it so important for you to talk about this?
Well, I'm what they consider as an elder now. And I have seen a lot in my day from the time Martin Luther King was killed. I was a child. And it seems to me that every 30 years or more, something really shocking happens in terms of murdering Black people. This last episode where George Floyd was murdered in front of millions of people around the world on TV, that it happened to be something more phenomenal than all the other. I mean, Martin Luther King led an enormous march. There was so much change happened from that. And what those poor people had to go through with being dogs sicked on them, killed, they were watered whole, the gamut of marching. But now we have a whole new millennium of people that are out there. And the disgust on white people's face that they finally get it, that they finally starting to see what we have been talking about for years. You know, Billie Holiday does a song called Strange Fruit.
Yes, yes.
A lot of people don't understand that the strange fruit was Black bodies hanging in trees in the southern states. They hung them other places around the world as well. The southern states, because the United States was one of the worst in their treatment of Black people. But, you know, that song said a lot because she was traveling as a performer and she actually saw Black bodies hanging in trees.
Yes, yeah.
Because they had no problem going in and dragging a Black woman, man, or child and hanging them in a tree, beating them till their face were not recognizable over simple things as, you know, looking at a white woman or whatever they felt like the necessary that they could do. That whole idea that someone can go in and just do people like that simply because their skin is dark is so, like, it's like, what kind of world are we living in? So when we spoke in the park about Black Lives Matter, and I saw all the young people and all the different cultures that God has put on the earth. For me, I'm a Christian, so that's how I believe that the Lord has put us all here. Anyway, we have to talk about it. We have to make change. It's not a conversation that is ever going to be put away unless we can wipe out some of this. Like I said, seeing these people is giving me hope. It's giving me hope that these young people, that people are starting to see it. You know, my white friends are coming to me and saying, I need to watch how I say this, or I shouldn't have said that, or I'm starting to get it, that you know, we're taking it for granted. And I'm proud of my friends who are white, who's coming to me and saying, I get white privilege now. I get what that means. Because I've never had to endure treatment in my life because of that, because of the color of my skin.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. For me, I mean, of course, as a black woman, I have experienced racism before. I just didn't talk about it much. Like I'm not the type who goes on Facebook and post a long rant about what happened to me that day. One of the reasons why I didn't speak out is because I didn't want to make people feel uncomfortable or like bring up something that a lot of people believe ended when basically emancipation happened, which is not the truth. But basically, recently, what I've been seeing on Facebook, even among some of my white family members, is there's a lot of people who are part of my circle, surprisingly, who still honestly are convinced that racism doesn't exist anymore. Everybody loves everybody. Everybody's being treated fairly, and they just don't understand why we're talking about this. They feel like it's an American problem. And so I realized they don't know these things because I've never told them about whatever has happened to me. I've never shared my experiences. They see me smiling, singing, doing my thing, and they're like, here's a black person who's happy, who's doing her thing. And so they assume all is hunky-dory. And so I realized it's important to talk about these things. Otherwise, you give the wrong impression to people, and therefore they don't make any efforts to change. They don't try to educate themselves. And so I think for me, it's important to talk about it even more now, because we now have a lot of examples that they can look at. And so I think it's important to raise these issues so that we can see each other, meet each other in a place where we are making an effort to genuinely understand and learn from each other.
I don't know, what I say. It's a very difficult subject because there's so many facets to being treated in a negative manner as a human being. We've made excuses all of our lives. We've learned to do that. Our ancestors broke the barriers of their freedom and bought their freedom, were educated. Some of them found ways to be educated. There is not a genre in the world that we haven't been party of. I'm so proud of my ancestors. But as we grew up, as younger people grew up and had to deal with racism, we learned how to understand that it was happening to us, but we didn't really scream it out loud that it was happening. And even though we would say that person is a racist to us, our counterparts or our friends or whatever didn't want to see that. So they rather say racism not happening because it's not happening to them.
Yeah.
But if you are a person who wants to hurt another person because of their skin color, you could have 12 people at a table, and all of the people at the table is white. You're the only black person at the table. The waitress or the waiter who decide to serve you, and he has an issue or she has an issue, she can put your plate down in a way to let you know that she's not or he's not approving of you.
Yes, yeah.
So you sit there and look really stupid when you say, did you see how that person put my plate down?
Exactly.
Everybody around the table is going to look and say to you, that's ridiculous. That's not happening. But you know it's happening. Or you get on the elevator and you're a big person, whether you're a man or a female, you get on the people are a little nervous because you're not the same size they are. You just happen to be a little bigger than they are. I'm not going to eat you. I already ate. Excuse me. And, I'm not going to step on you. men have had to do it forever, black men especially, where they get in an elevator and there's a little white woman there and she's feeling like, oh, my life is going to be threatened. They're not even, some of them are not even thinking about anything to do with harming a person. But they've had to compensate. They've had to try to make themselves look not suspicious or try to hide. How do you hide yourself? So we've all our lives have learned how the Nanaimo African Heritage Society has been supported in our community in Canada for 21 years. We have a lot of people that comes out and they learn about Black history. They learn about the pioneers that were here in the 1800s and the 1700s. But we still go through our racism. We still are not treated equally like everyone else is treated. And so it is not something that is explainable or easy to explain. But it is always have happened. Always have happened. We just now have people can maybe say, okay, well, if they could kill a man on TV for his color, perhaps some of these things are true. Why don't we have discussions in our schools about the Black pioneers? So these are all the things that we need to now strike while the iron is hot, keep the press going. We need change. We need to talk about it. We need to have discussions about it. I don't feel like being a teacher all the time.
Nobody wants to do
Nobody
that.
wants to be a teacher to teach you that treating another human being the way we've been treated is not. You need to find that out for yourself. But what you need to find out is we are as equal as you are. There is nothing you have ever done in the world that Black people have not done. We've done it all. Even bought our freedom. Our ancestors bought their freedom and were able to come to this country and help to build this country. Right here in Nanaimo, we live on Nanaimo First Nations territory, but Black pioneers helped to build this. They not only they built America, but they came to Canada and helped to build Canada. So all of that should be taught in our schools. It should be understood from children growing up, the contributions that everybody played, because it took everyone to build, and it's going to take everyone to survive.
It's definitely one of the sad thing I find, because I went to high school here. We never ever talked about Black history. We had a small mention where they said, yes, there was racism in the U.S. and some of the Black slaves were able to escape to Canada where everything was much better. But clearly I'm sure people were not all excited in Canada to see Black people. The ancestors who came here first had to build their own lives here. They had to go through certain things in order to survive and to thrive here. And so I wish that is something that they taught in high school or even elementary school here. I went to school at NDSS where I do remember a number of Halloweens where kids would come to school in blackface and nobody ever said anything in school. I believe there was me and two other Black kids there, and nobody ever questioned the validity of somebody dressing as a Black person for Halloween. And so I think it's important to talk about those things, because if they had taught those things, kids wouldn't think it's okay to come to school dressed like that on Halloween. And so, it's important to talk about this. It's important to teach about these subjects. Not that everybody in the Black community is going to be your teacher. I think if you have specific questions and you approach somebody in a respectful way and you attempting to have an honest and open-hearted kind of conversation. We will have a conversation with you, but I don't think it's our job to turn into these teachers who teach everybody constantly.
I have a lot of conversation during this now, especially because of what happened to George Floyd and the effect that it's had all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
not just America,
Mm-hmm.
but this one touched Australia, London, New Zealand. I mean, just around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I do believe that it would help if the school systems start recognizing there was a lot more than to black people than coming here under the Underground Railroad.
Mm-hmm.
They need to look at the contributors as well, the people who came to this land,
Mm-hmm.
just like their forefathers came to this land and built. There was no difference in the people that came, especially in British Columbia, that history of the pioneers coming here and helping to build the land. Those are very, very important points for kids to learn when they're small, so that they grow up understanding that their ancestors paid contributions like everybody else did. I that's one of the things I'm hoping to see change, that the schools start talking about it, and having and inviting people to understand that the cultures go back as far as anybody third and fourth. There's 7 and 8 generations of blacks that are Canadian. You know, I have a wonderful author that the Nanaimo African Heritage Study hosts Black History every year for February, and we share with our community and every one of the contributions of blacks. We bring special people in. We ask the black president of the Ontario. She written books, Rosemary Sadler, and she's written many books. She just did a book on Harriet Tubman, and she's done books on BC Blacks, British Columbia Blacks pioneers. And she's come here and read to children. And one of the questions she asks, "Where am I from?" And the kids guess everywhere. They say Jamaica, they say Africa, they say Brazil, they say everywhere, but the one place they don't say is Canada. So at the end of the seminar and the read, she gives prizes to the kids, but nobody ever wins that one prize.
Because nobody ever guesses.
Nobody ever guesses
Yeah.
that her generation is 9 generation of people in Canada. So wherever there is dark skin, black and brown skin, whether it's in India, whether it's in Russia, then there's going to be a backlash to you as a dark person.
Yeah, that's the reality. I think it's important, yes, to talk about that, because a lot of people assume that Black people only live either in Africa or somewhere in the U.S. and the Virgin Islands.
I tell everybody, you know, this funny thing that you got going here that I find hard to do is this social media stuff. You guys got it going on, especially the young folks. Get on your social media, type in Black folks, and you'll find them all over the world and their contributions. Study your history. Learn about things. Don't, just because, you know, I heard the actress Helen Hunt say something about white privilege. I never thought too much about her as an actor. I mean, she's probably a good actress or whatever, but when she got on TV and she said, I'm white privilege, I didn't have to look at the other side. I didn't have to look at other people. And when I worked in LA and I had to work around Black people, I got to talk to women and men about their lives, and I saw how our lives intertwine. I saw the likeness in our lives. She really won me over by just talking like that, because that is what people need to do. They need to open up their closed world and look at the big world. And that's what I think is happening now more than ever, because of someone being murdered on live television.
I think going on that same line of thought of like making sure you're like trying to get to know people of color. I think sometimes when you are a white person and you've met like one or two black people that you have as acquaintances or as friends that you hang out now and then, you can get into this place where you feel like, oh, I know everything. I'm officially not racist anymore because I have somewhat befriended these people, but you don't educate yourself. You don't ever talk to them about racial issues. You don't make any efforts, like you still use the N-word in front of them or even in their backs. Like, just because you have a black friend or you're dating a black person or you have a distant cousin who's black, it doesn't make you immune to racism. What takes it away, it's for you to learn about them, for you to basically understand, you will never 100% understand one person's experience, but you can make an effort to sympathize, to stand up for them when they are being discriminated against. And I say this because I have seen like some of my people I thought were friends, people I thought were family to me, and they are Trump supporters. They don't believe racism exists, and it's shocking to me because when somebody calls them out on them, they're like, no, I'm not racist. I'm friends with Nicole. I'm friends with this person. I'm family with this person. I'm like, no, you might tolerate them, but you don't support them. You don't stand up for them. You still do all these things that they have told you that are hurtful to them and to the rest of the community. So don't be complacent just because you know a black person somewhere. Do your actual work. Like a lot of people who come into this country as immigrants, like me being one of them. We come here, we learn the language, we learn the culture, we make an effort to get to know you as white people. So it would be nice if you did reciprocate that and try to know us instead of like assuming things and just living on stereotypes. One of the things I found very ironic is when white people insist that we as black people were violent and we're thieves and we're thugs and we're lazy. But your people came into our continent. You stole our resources, stole our people.
Kidnapped.
You kidnapped, you raped
Murderers.
People, you killed people. Like,
murderers.
I don't understand. Like, that's the epitome of violence and thug life and all those things. Yeah. So don't think you're immune to that. And so it's really important to have these conversations and make an effort to learn.
Well, just like Kopi virus, the Kopi virus, it doesn't discriminate.
Yeah.
Crime doesn't discriminate. Or ignorance is not a discriminatory thing. So it's not one set of people. People are capable of doing egregious things no matter what color they are. I have a friend. I don't know. I find it so strange that I see people as people. Of course, someone down the road gave us white, black, and all these colors. I remember when I was until I was about 12 years old, I referred to everybody as ice cream flavors.
Oh, that's a nice concept.
I don't know why. It made no sense to me that you were black or white, because I would look at a white person and I would go, Well, they're not white. My sheets are white. They're not that color, and I'm not black. I mean, black is my shoe. I'm not that color. So what is that? I'm brown. So, but I have a friend. She is close to 80, very, very close to 80. She's a white woman. I like her. I just like her as a person. And I really, when people say, well, I don't see you as color, well, if you don't see my color, then you don't know me. You don't see me. We see color.
Yes.
Bullshit. We see color, right? Maybe you need to take that one out. I don't know.
That's okay.
But I'll worry about her. I'll think about her, and I'll call her up and say, "Hey, you want to go out to lunch today? What have you? You've been in all this time with the COVID virus and all this stuff, and you've been quarantining yourself. Let's go out for lunch or do something." We go out to lunch, and she calls me Negro. And while we're sitting at the table, she will say nigger.
Oh.
And her excuse to why she can't stop saying that is that she's almost 80. And that her father referred to people of that. And she would have her people around her said that so much that she can't get out. So we went out to lunch just recently. And I said to her, I will not tolerate you saying that to me any longer. I like you as a human being. My name is Shalema. You know that. And I'm not a nigger, and I'm not a Negro. But if you need to refer to my skin color, I'm brown. And to this world, I'm known as a black person. If you can't use those, let me know, because I won't bother you anymore. But if I go out with you and you say nigger or you say Negro, that's it for me. I do not want to hear that from you again.
Yeah.
So talking to people, I talk to people, I have conversations with people. I don't care what nationality you are. If you are rude to me or you being hurtful to me, I'm going to tell you. And far as Canada goes, racism is here. Wherever dark skin is, racism is. Because for some strange reason or another, because of our history, our ancestry history, they can't get past that. We like black music. I listen to, this is some white people, we listen to all the genres of music. We love the music.
Yeah.
But you ever heard somebody who's racist, like black music, but they don't like black people?
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever?
Oh, yeah.
I don't understand. What's that?
I think that's part of the one thing. It's one of the things that is frustrating for us, because they will love our music. They will love all sorts of things about our culture. They will love our braids, our food. They will fetishize the women and the men. They will. I've heard people who fetishize the whole concept of having a mixed race baby because they think it's cool and it's the new in thing. But they're still the same people who go out there calling people niggers. They're the same people who are supporting Trump, or other people who are really racist. Like, they're just, I don't understand the whole concept, because they just don't get it. They think we're...
Maybe they don't understand that in the back of their trenches that they've been brainwashed by people who have been saying the same information to them over and over. These are racist people who've been in their generations or been back in their families and so on. The white supremacists. But I got news for all of the people who want to have the world and have the world belong to only one kind. That is never going to be.
No.
So get over it and get into all of us living our lives until our time to go, and let people be people. You know, I to have police officers attack young black men and kill them on the streets and stuff. This is an evil that has been put in their heads when they were children, or the way they were raised, or if they went to the armies and killed people. But the large thing we have to understand that there is a lot of mental health work out there. There's a lot of mental illness in our world. And again, it don't discriminate. When you see somebody who will there is something wrong, deeply wrong, with somebody who would put their knee on another person's neck and watch the life, feel the life, because you can feel reactions through our bodies. He must have known that he was taking that man's life. He could feel it in his knee. He can feel it in his body that he was killing somebody. But the idea that his arrogance, that he could do that and get away with it, he actually believed he can get away with it. So that is scary. That we have to live in that. That's another side of being black. You know. That should we be killed because of our skin color? Somebody will kill us because of our skin color?
Yeah. It's very scary not being able to trust the people who were put in place to protect you.
And I've been lucky enough that all the police constables that I've met in Canada, I remember one of the things that I wanted to do when I first became a Canadian is I wanted 2 Mounties to stand beside me with their red jackets on. Well, I have that photograph. 2 good-looking Mounties stood beside me, and they had the Canadian red jacket and the hat and the whole look. And I was very proud of that. And I just recently got stopped by speeding and got a ticket, and the gentleman, the officer, was very kind to me, and it was interesting because I didn't have any fear. But if I'm driving in the States, I automatically get fear. My family will not let me drive in the States because we don't know what's going to stop us. Canada is a good place, but I don't want people to think that racism don't exist. It does exist. I have heard young people say that they have been harassed by police officers, and we've seen that it's happened. There've been some questions about different people dying in the hands of police officers here in this country, but the police officers, that whole thing, they have to go in and retrain police officers, and they have to weed out the people that have these issues. And I know that that's not going to be an easy task. But like I said, I believe mental illness follows in so many different genres, and I don't think that it escaped police officers or people that we put in charge of humankind. So that's something that that's a huge other subject that has to be looked at. And all the policies that have been written, in the government for many, many years, especially United States, when you see a man like George Washington, was one of the first presidents in United States. Well, George Washington had slaves. How is it going to be possible? It has to be done, but how is that going to be possible when you have a man who have slaves govern the land, who's the president of the land? It was easy to put somebody like Trump in the White House because it's been done over and over. So these are the things that needs to be eradicated. You can't be putting people in the White House who has a bigotry towards people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know where to begin, where to end. I just know that we just have to keep talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
We have to keep having these conversations. Um, as tiring as they are, and as disgusting as they are,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, we have to keep talking about it. We have to keep moving forward, hoping that people will make change,
Mm-hmm.
helping people make change.
Yeah.
I like to see that happen in our own community with the education
Mm-hmm.
of all sorts, whether it be police, whether it be schools, whether it be our own mayor, whether it be our city hall.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see people visible.
Yes.
When I walk into the city hall, it'd be nice to see some culture,
Mm-hmm.
variety of culture.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening with our children that are graduating? They're all fleeing from our communities
Mm-hmm.
because there's nothing here for culture. Why? We have lots of culture here. We have lots of Black people, we have lots of Spanish people, we have East Indian, we have all of that. Canada Day, you see it all.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not visible in our cities, in our mainstream city.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so as a person who has lived both in the US and Canada, how do you feel? What are the differences do you see in terms of racism, like in the US versus here?
Wow. United States has had 400 and some years of slavery, and then it felt as though the people deserve to be treated less than.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been something that has been carried out for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
Canada has a different kind of racism because it is not prudent to be racist.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of, we will do it, but we will do it underneath.
Mm-hmm.
So in Canada, the racism is just as detrimental.
Mm-hmm.
You might not have bodies hanging in the trees,
Mm-hmm.
but you have mental, people are destroyed mentally.
Yeah, like micro.
Because it's like something that within, because it's so hidden
Mm-hmm.
that as I expressed it earlier,
Mm-hmm.
the example of somebody placing your plate down, that actually happened to me one time,
Mm-hmm.
where every time the girl was serving me, she would know the difference between crossing her body over me, over my plate, over my food,
Mm-hmm.
to letting me know that I was a nothing, but the other people she was serving was more important to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that underground, that
Like underlined, it's kind of more sneaky.
it's,
than,
we're going to go in the back room and we're going to call the person a nigger, blah, 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 but we're going to come back out. We're going to smile at the person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or we're going to put that person's chart underneath in a medical situation, or we're going to change things. So it is scary.
Mm-hmm.
They're both just as bad. Now, can you live? I would prefer, but prefer to live in this country
Mm-hmm.
more,
Mm-hmm.
because I has just not experienced any kind of. But to be honest with you, I feel lucky because even growing up in the States, I was a model, I was an performer,
Mm-hmm.
I traveled, I never been asked to get off a bus, never been refused a restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
Lived a pretty good life, and I do the same thing here in Canada. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I know what my ancestors go through. I know what people go through of color.
Mm-hmm.
I know what it feels like to be discriminated against, because I get discriminated against, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very subtle. It's
Yes.
not in your face like it is sometimes in the U.S.
Yeah. I was actually having this conversation with a person the other day. They were asking, like, do you think racism is stronger in the US than it is in Canada? So what I was thinking, like, yes, there are certain, on some level, yes, but on others, no. In a sense of, like, I haven't really lived in the US. I've been there multiple times on vacation. But I feel like in the US, they're more overt about it. They're more like in your face about it. Where here it's just those micro attacks, where it's like passive aggressive in a way. Like an experience of mine that comes to mind, which happened to me like literally at the end of March, like at the beginning of COVID. I went to VIU to pay for my tuition, and so I was with two other classmates. So the first one went ahead, paid, left. The second one went ahead, paid, left. No big questions, no questioning happening, nothing. And so I approach this person. I give her my page that shows which class I'm taking, and she is to tell me how much to pay. And so she gives me the total, and then I'm like, okay, I'll pay with debit. So she looks at me, and then she looks at the card, and she's like, are you sure that's a debit card? I'm like, yes. Like, are you sure that's a Canadian debit card? I'm like, yes. She's like, if it's not a Canadian debit card, I'm going to have to refund the money, and then you're going to have to redo the payment. I'm like, yes. She's like, well, if you're really, really sure. And so I paid, and then she's like, oh, okay, looks like it went through. And then she gave me my paper, and then I went away. In a moment of like, why didn't you ask these same questions to the two classmates who went before me? Like, do I look so stupid that I don't know what a debit card is, what a Canadian bank account is? Like, if let's say for argument's sake, I was not Canadian, I was like fresh, new here. If you're trying to help somebody who's new, there's a way to talk to them. There's a way to educate them. Like, you don't have to be so rude about the whole situation. Like, even if I was new, it doesn't mean I'm not able to go downtown and open a bank account anywhere. So like those kind of things, like they're not gonna like. I've only ever had one situation where I felt, actually no, two situations where I felt physically threatened. But most of them are like those little
moments.
Yeah.
And those little moments is that you were not Canadian.
Yeah.
She was assuming that you were from some foreign country.
She assumed I was an international
that you were an international student.
Yeah.
When she could have just simply came out and said, "Are you an international student?" That would have been better than playing with your playing with that you're stupid, you don't understand.
Yeah.
Because I get that too. Even with this COVID virus, which is really strange, God is trying to tell us something, folks. With the COVID virus, people so, oh, well, I'm not Canadian, so therefore I'm going to be extra strange. Here I'm coming. I got a mask on. I got gloves on when it first started. And one particular incident was I'm going into a clinic and a lady coming out of the clinic, she's going out of the clinic, I'm coming in the clinic, and she had to go all the way over here, and she had to act really weird, like because I was coming to her, as though she saw the COVID virus walking right to her, right?
Yeah.
So because she's assuming in her mind that I wasn't from here, and obviously I've traveled, I could be from the States or somewhere else.
Yeah.
So that is that kind of behavior that we know what it is, and other people want to say that they don't see that. But we know exactly what it is. Is that sort of stupidity, sort of, I get that kind of, and I love that from young people who act as though I'm not speaking perfectly good English, or I don't know something that they have to school me on, or something like that. They assume that I'm from some other country as well, right? Those little things. If you got three people standing in a line, They're all coming to pay for their tuition. The same behavior that those other people gave their card, treat you the same way. Now, if something happens and your card don't go through or something like that, then you can ask the question. But in the meantime, just take the card, just pay for the tuition like everybody else until something happens to make you ask you if you all those kind of things. But they don't. But if you told that person that that's how you felt, she would argue to the cows come home that it has nothing to do with your color. She would argue to the cows come home that nothing to do with the fact that you were a black student.
Yeah,
and that's so. I don't even know. It makes me mad. But one of the things that it does, it makes you so sad that people treat you that way. You know, it's so unnecessary.
Yeah, and I think also a lot of white people don't realize that when they do things like that, especially in a place of business, you're hurting your business. A lot of times they assume that we're all very poor and we just like they can do without our business. But I don't have to go to university at VIU. There's tons of other universities out there. I can give my business somewhere else. So like if I chose not to go there because of this one experience, they're losing money. And if all my black friends decide, like a lot of like VIU as an institution depends on international students. If they're treating international students this way and they choose not to bring that business, the university is not going to survive that.
I don't think they really understand that you're paying their salaries by helping the international students coming. But you happen to be a Canadian, so for them, for the international students coming in, that's one thing for them to start appreciating and realizing these are not stupid people coming from other places. These are smart, well-educated people. Sometimes come from very wealthy families that can afford to send them here. So they're not poor people. They're not stupid. They're not. And even if you have a situation where you don't quite speak quite good English, that doesn't mean that you're stupid. It means that you don't speak the language. All those little things that people can change within themselves. Ask yourself before you make statements, before you treat somebody in a certain way. Is this going to offend this person? Am I going to be making this person stand out as though I'm thinking of this person anywhere different than anything? You know, why you in the third person that showed you're with your friends? It don't make sense, but it makes sense to me. It happened to me on the weekend where me and my white friend went up to have lunch together, and I'm standing over here waiting for him to pay for his meal and stuff like that, and I got asked about 3 times, "Are you guys on the same bill? Are you guys on the same bill?" So my friend just threw his card down and walked away. It's like, you know, and I know some of it. I know life is. People are not always the smartest. It's not always the smartest. Sometimes they do so silly things and it has nothing to do with race. But a lot of times it do.
Yeah, I think when you are doing certain things, asking certain questions, I think it's important to ask yourself, what is my intention here? Like, am I asking this question because it's important to what we're trying to accomplish here? Will this question help me assist this person better, or am I just being prejudiced here? So like examining your own intentions, I think is really important.
I was standing in line in the supermarket yesterday, and I had bought all these flowers, and then I bought groceries, and then I was debating. So I wanted to have them on separate bills because I go, well, I don't really need the flowers, but I need the food. So am I going to pay for them? But the young girl was nice. We had a kind of conversation until another person came and stood in line. And that person, she began, the teller began to raise her voice at me as to make up my mind. It took me that much. I almost just said, no, I don't want none of it. But I didn't want to leave that image. That's another thing. We don't want to leave images of being like that difficult Black person, so that everybody that comes in that till, that she treats them the same way, right? So I was like, okay, no, I don't want to do that. I'm going to go ahead and pay for it, even though I don't like the way she's raising her voice at me at this moment.
So guys, that was our conversation. I hope you found it informative in some way. If you would like to learn more, we have shared earlier throughout the day some links, some movies, books, documentaries, things you can check out to educate yourself. I think it's important to say that Shalema and I are not, we don't represent every Black person out there. We all have different experiences. So keep having these conversations. Talk to your friends, family members, talk to your colleagues. Just make sure the conversation is still happening and you learning more. A big thank you again to the Nanaimo Pride Society for supporting us, for supporting Black Lives Matter, and for amplifying Black voices. Thank you for your time and have a good night.
Southern trees bear strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Pastoral scene of the gallant South, the bulging eyes and the twisted mouth, scent of magnolia, sweet and fresh. Then the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here is a fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rot, for the tree to drop. Here's a strange and bitter cry.